Welcome to episode number 276 of the Effortless Swimming Podcast. My guest today is someone who's just come off the back of breaking the record for crossing the Cook Strait. Andy Donaldson, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, hello, Brenton. Thanks for having me on here.
Now, I had John Hancock on the podcast a few episodes ago. He had a very respectable time, 8 hours and change, and then you come along and you average 110 across the Cook Strait. And breaking the record, you did 4 hours and 33 minutes. And there's an unbelievable pace to hold for that time and that distance. And just an incredible swim. And I actually had a number of people message me saying, get Andy on the podcast. I want to hear his story. What's he doing? What's his secret sauce? How's he feeling? All that sort of stuff. So I'd love to get into that today and a bit of the backstory on how you came to do the Cook Strait. But it's only a very small part of what you're looking to achieve, which we'll get into. So let's just start with the swim itself, because this is probably very fresh in your mind, having done this about a week ago. So let's go through the swim. Where do you want to start?
Oh, good question, Brenton. So I'd gone across to Wellington at the start of February with hopes of getting across the Cook Strait and having a stab at it. And when I arrived, it was an eventful couple of weeks. Cyclone Gabrielle, obliterated the country. There were a couple of earthquakes in Wellington, severe weather. The inter-islander ferries were breaking down in the Cook Strait. So all of these things were happening, just as I arrived in Wellington. So not exactly, what you need when you're trying to prepare for one of these big swims across a channel. But on the flip side, it was an incredible opportunity to meet a lot of the local swimmers over in Wellington, and just swimming down at Freiburg Beach with a group called the Washing Machines. It was just a great opportunity to meet people there and swim with such a wonderful community. So ended up waiting for about 3 weeks before there was a weather window opened up for the Cook Strait. And it was a fairly daunting prospect. We were sort of proposed an idea to swim at midnight on a Monday during something called a spring tide.
And from there, so you had this window of opportunity. You got the spring tide where there's basically more water movement compared to the neap tide. So what was your headspace going into this swim? It's dark. It's probably a bit cold, and you're doing something that isn't really usually done. So what was your headspace like leading into it?
Yeah, great. It's a great question. There's certainly a lot of nerves, excitement, doubts. All of it was creeping into my head. We were trying something we were about to try something that hadn't really been done before. Not many swimmers have attempted the Cook Strait on a spring tide just because of that sheer amount of water that might be passing through a channel at that particular time. Almost being thought of being unswimmable. So that was one aspect. And, the Cook Strait is kind of known for being quite sharky as well. So to be swimming out there at night where you can't see anything, during a spring tide where there was a good chance that you might actually be out there for a long time because of these currents. I mean, I'd been told so many horror stories of people being stuck in the same spot just because of the sheer strength of the tides. So everything was kind of playing on my mind in the run up to the swim. But, I think it's natural to have those doubts creep in. We're all human after all. The important thing is how you react to them and how you choose to process that information and those thoughts. Luckily for me, I had a lot of good people around me. I'd made some really good friendships with some of the locals who had come across to the South Island to. They very kindly offered to come and support on the boat. So I talked through my sort of thoughts and what was on my mind with them. along with the organisers, Jacqueline McClellan from Infinity, and together as a team, we sat down, addressed those issues together, and come up with a real solid plan that we could focus on, and think about the things that were within our control, because ultimately that's all you can do. And whatever, we were just of the opinion, whatever happened out there happened. We'd be just giving it our best go.
And how long into the swim did you or those on the boat realize things were going reasonably well, where maybe some of that doubt had left their mind about leaving on this tide?
I suppose it would have been maybe about an hour in. So the skipper was a guy called Grant Orchard from Captain Charters. The plan that he'd devised, we were just going to leave, I think it was shortly after the low tide. And essentially what he had said was, in the first hour, we really need to get to work. There might be some really strong localized currents that we have to kind of push through and get past before things kind of flatten down. And there is like slack in the water, so minimal tidal movement. And we can really get to work and make some progress. So essentially I came flying out the blocks, probably sitting at around 110s or underneath 110 pace per 100 meters. And we got through that first hour, I think, in just over 5 kilometers. Like I saw that we were communicating using the whiteboard. So I saw the sign come down. I was like, oh crap, that's not too bad. And, it felt quite comfortable. So I just thought, well, I'll just keep going at this pace. And so, you see stuff like that. And obviously, if that was in a pool, that's quite a decent pace. But you're out in the open water, and there's so many different variables and factors that can contribute to a swim of this length. You might have covered 5Ks, but it might have been in the wrong direction. So I tried not to get too excited. You still got a job to do. So I just focused on the process and, the current moment, and tried not to get too, ahead of myself. So I think it would have been about 2 hours in. We were all at around 11 Ks. And again, in my head, I'm thinking, right, thoughts of, we might be on here for a really fast time and possibly even the record were entering my head. But again, just, had to stay grounded. Anything can change just like that. You just don't know. So focus on what you can control. And that was just the pace that I was going at that particular time. Finally, I think it was maybe at 3 hours 45, the sign came down telling me what distance we'd covered, and it was 3 hours 45, 2.5 kilometers to go. And the record was 4 hours 37. So I'm thinking, right, I've got like 45 minutes to go 2.5 Ks. Like that's not too bad. I might have stuck my head up and said, holy something. And I breathed to my right, and I could see the land. That was the first time I'd breathed to the right. So to all the listeners out there, don't do what I do, breathe to both sides and balance out your stroke. But I only breathed to my left. So I breathed to the right and saw the land and thought, whoa, we're so close. But again, just had to kind of stay calm. I knew that we probably still had quite a lot of work to do. And the skipper had said the start and the finish is going to be the hardest parts. There's very likely to be localized currents and eddies that will suck you out to sea, or won't work in your favor. And that was the case. We were approaching the North Island, and the guys on the boat were telling me to pick up the pace, even though nothing had changed in my stroke. I was maintaining the same stroke rate of 60 strokes per minute. They were telling me to lift the pace, and that 2.5K, It took about 45 minutes to complete in that last stretch because the tides were turning. So, I could see the guys on the boat getting a bit more animated. We'd gone through a few feeds and I knew it was going to go down to the wire. As soon as I saw the waving arms and such like that, I knew it was going to be close. So I just threw everything I had left at the wall, and very fortunately, we got in just under the previous record.
That's an amazing result. And seeing what you have done with previous swims, you've been very close to some other records for long distance swims. So how was that feeling, actually getting the record when you've been so close on a lot of other occasions?
Obviously, it's just like a dream come true to go and set, well, I suppose the fastest time of all time of a particular crossing. For me personally, any of these channel swims, it's just such a huge achievement to complete them. So that's always the first goal. Completion is key, and then anything above that, the way I see it, anything above that is a bonus. So in a few of the previous swims that I've done, I've been just off records. I think Rottnest at the time, it was only 4 minutes off. Same with the North Channel, only 4 minutes off the record there. So it was quite nice to be 4 minutes under.
Goes your way for once. That's fantastic. And one thing I haven't mentioned so far, but I'm sure people will have read probably in the show notes here if they've listened to the podcast on Spotify or somewhere similar, is your overall goal is to do the Ocean 7 within 365 days, within a year. That's the big overarching goal. And this being your third swim. So you've done the English Channel, you've done the North Sea, now done Cook Strait, and you've got 4 more to go.
Yeah, that's right. So when I embarked on this journey, the core purpose was to use swimming and the Ocean Sevens as a vehicle to raise money and awareness for mental health. Mental health is a big and important issue that's quite close to my heart. And off the back of winning the Rottnest Channel Swim in 2021, we'd raised about $15,000. So I knew that it was a great tool and capable of bringing attention to an important cause. And so I'd set goals, quite lofty goals, such as trying to do the Ocean Sevens in a year, to try bring more awareness to what we were doing and the core purpose behind it. So we've done 3 swims so far. I did the English Channel in August. So going off that, the goal is to try complete the remaining 4 by the end of July.
And is it coming into the windows when you're able to do those swims with weather and temperature and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, that's it, Brenton. So, organizing these swims has been quite a logistical challenge. They're all spread out across the world. They all have their own unique challenges and particular times of the year where it's better to attempt them and more sort of consistent and favorable weather. So things like the Cook Strait, the weather's a real unknown variable. It's one of the windiest places in the world. The channel basically acts as a wind tunnel. So there are very few opportunities to swim during a calendar year. So, luckily enough, I've been able to organize and book in slots for the remaining 4. But, when you get there, it can be quite tough because, unlike traditional swimming where you pretty much know which day, which heat, almost down to the minute where you'll be swimming, with these marathon swims here, such as the Cook Strait, it's not like that. And you could be like I was sitting around for several weeks waiting for your opportunity to swim.
What are you doing in that time where you're having to wait? Because I imagine it would be a little bit frustrating. You might be a bit of doubt. Am I actually going to get to do this thing? and you've probably got the fitness there. You're trained up, you're ready to go, but you've just got to sit around and wait. So what are you doing in that time, and how are you keeping yourself mentally switched on, ready for the swim?
Yeah, that's the real challenge in my eyes. So, I mean, obviously there's the physical challenge of these swims, but the mental challenge and that uncertainty can really play on your mind. You know, for me, we had a few false green lights, I suppose, where the organisers thought that a particular day might be favourable. They'd be saying, "All right, we're looking at Tuesday," and then come the Sunday evening, no, it's a no-goer. So it's really about managing your emotions. For me, you know, I like to be ready. I like to be prepared, and almost ready to, you know, spring into action when you get the go ahead. But at the same time, you don't want to be, you know, thinking about it all at every second moment. You know, because it can be quite fatiguing and taxing. So I was just trying to, you know, create a routine that I could stick to. I was maintaining my swimming and trying to maintain the sort of strength exercises that I've been given to do. But also, I think it's just important to enjoy the time that you're there. I mean, a lot of these swims are in some fantastic places around the world, and it's almost a shame to go there and not really see it. So I was trying to get out and around, see some of the sites, meet the locals, and really just capitalize and enjoy the opportunity given to you. So most people would have seen waiting around for 3 weeks as something that was a bad thing, but for me it was one of the best experiences I think that have ever happened to me. So I was very grateful for my time in Wellington. I got to know some really incredible people, and I think that helps when you've got good people around and you're not just getting stuck in your own head thinking about this one.
Yeah, and that I think Wellington, from I don't know all the open water swimming communities, but I know a lot of people from Wellington, and they've got a great community of swimmers there. Like a very it's not a huge population by any means, but very sort of tight knit and passionate swimming community, which is terrific. And I think viewing it that way, being able to just enjoy that time off, go sightseeing, meet the locals, and actually enjoy the place that you're in is a great way to keep sane and just take your mind off the swim. And I mean, we'll probably have quite a few people listening to this podcast in some of the other locations that you're going to, and you know, they might end up reaching out as well and just saying, hey, you know, take you around, show you around if you're kicking about for a couple of weeks as well. Hopefully you're not having to kick around for too long. You can just get the swim done, but I'm sure you'll have people reach out. And some people are probably wondering, what's your background? How the hell can you hold 110 pace for across the Cook Strait? You obviously haven't started as an adult, and I know your background's in competitive swimming. Do you want to talk a bit about that and what you were working towards with your competitive swimming career and sort of what eventuated from there?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in the west of Scotland as a pool swimmer, predominantly sort of 200 meters, 200 freestyle, 200 backstroke, 2 fly, 4 IM, all the fun events. And was very fortunate to get to a stage where I was, you know, racing for my country, going around the world and swimming with some of the best swimmers around. That ultimately took me across to Western Australia back in 2012, and that's where I discovered open water swimming. So got into that, and I just absolutely loved it. There's just something different about it. You know, it was quite a nice change of scenery, not having to be around the poolside all the time over your weekends. You'd be traveling to some of the nicest locations around and swimming in some absolutely pristine waters. So I really loved it. But in about 2016, I'd had a few hopes to try race on the international stage. It wasn't looking likely with either Great Britain or Australia, but I was exploring opportunities to maybe swim for Indonesia, which is where my mother's from. And when those didn't really seem to appear possible, I stepped away from the sport. I was 25 at the time and thought, I've dedicated so much of my life to swimming, and I think I was neglecting other areas like my career. So I'm an accountant, and so I wanted to spend a bit more time pursuing that and growing and building a career and thinking about life after swimming. And it was a bit of a shame. I probably left the sport not having really achieved the things that I wanted to, or feeling a bit unfulfilled, and perhaps in my own view, as a bit of a failure. So I was a bit burnt out from it all. So, I didn't actually have any intentions to come back to the sport, not in a competitive capacity at all. But it's funny what happens in life. And during the coronavirus, I found myself coming back to swimming as a way of managing my mental well-being. One of my friends during lockdown invited me to come swim along the coast, and through those swims from Trig Beach in WA to Sorrento, just rediscovered this passion for the sport and swimming, and realized just how much I missed it as an incredible thing as part of my life. So was very fortunate in that regard, and blessed that happened to me during a worldwide pandemic.
What is it about the sport that you think drew you back?
I think there's a number of things. I mean, obviously there's the physical benefits of swimming. It's a full body workout. But I think from a mental aspect, you're in the water, you're with nature, you're out in the elements, and there's time for you to be alone with your own thoughts. I don't think there's many things out there in today's world, in society, where that happens. You're always connected. You're always, if you go on the train, everyone's looking at their phone or listening to music. But when you're in the water, it's just you and nature. And I think there's something very freeing and liberating about that. You're swimming and it is peaceful. There's a breathwork element to it, which has a very calming effect. And then once you've done your swim, there's the community aspect of it, and all these people around you in for the same reasons, and with many of them working towards particular goals. So through the process of these swims, I started to get quite fit again, and with a bit of encouragement from that friend that first invited me down, a guy called Martin Smoothy, he suggested maybe you should revisit some of your old goals and see what happens. And so from there, this would have been in mid 2020, I decided to get back into swimming and have a crack at trying to win the Rottnest Channel Swim, which is the big open water swim here in Perth, Western Australia.
And then, so you were working at the time, or did you quit your job at that stage?
So I'd quit my job at that stage. So yeah, to wind back a bit, I spent a number of years. I essentially, coming out of swimming, when you transition out of the sport, it isn't easy. You have this huge void. And all this time on your hands. Like, I used to train maybe 20 to 24 hours a week, and all of that free time is now at your disposal. So I ended up throwing myself into my job, and working in the city, long hours, doing the chartered accounting studies, the financial planning studies. I was burning the candle at both ends. I'd come home after a long day and spend another 2 or 3 hours reading a book on tax. So I did that for a number of years, and things in my life weren't balanced. I was neglecting my health. I wasn't seeing my friends. I wasn't swimming that much, and it all came to a head in 2019. So I ended up quitting my job and going overseas to travel for indefinitely, which at the time was something I'd always wanted to do. And fortunately for me, COVID brought me back to Perth and got me back in the water during lockdown. So yeah, it was this big, I suppose, roller coaster of a journey, which ultimately brought me back to the thing that I'd been doing all my life, that was my common ground in a place of, I don't know how to word it, like just familiar ground, I suppose.
And it's because going from full-time training to then full-time work would be very, very challenging. Like I haven't competed at the level you have. However, just going from when I was in high school training, like during school holidays, you're training 8-9 times a week and it's full on. And then you've got this transition to something different where there's other things going on. Like it's very and to going to no swimming as well. That is a huge change in terms of physiologically as well, where you're just sedentary for those 20 to 24 hours a day instead of actually moving and getting those good chemicals running through you. And you might look in the mirror and go, this is what's happening to me as well, compared to what you used to, and just how you feel. So I can imagine how hard it would be. And I've got a friend who was playing AFL for, I think, the last 14, 15 years, and he retired last year. And I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he's now a farmer, and he's gone just full time into work, but it's a physical work. And he was talking about that transition from playing AFL for 15 years to now not playing at all. But he feels like he's been able to get through that transition fairly well because he's busy all the time, but it's physical work and his mind's always running, and it's been all right for him. But I think if it was sitting at a desk for those 60 hours a week instead of being out and about on the farm, it would be a very different story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I look back at it and, as challenging as it was, I wouldn't change a thing, because I think you have to experience that to ultimately understand and know what you need. You have to go through that adversity to kind of have that growth and get some meaning from it and really value what's important to you. So yeah, it was a journey, but it was one that was well worth going through.
And I've heard that from a lot of people, where the most challenging times in their life, where maybe they weren't happy with what was happening, or they wanted a different situation. It's those things where you actually make that turn and actually realize, right, what I really want to be doing. And you've got to go through those hard times to come out and have the good times, like it sounds like you're having now. So it's as much as difficult as they are to go through, and at the time you can't see where it could take you in the long run. Looking back in hindsight, you go, okay, I'm actually glad I went through that, because it's led to this. So yeah, sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, what's your training like at the moment? How many hours a week are you doing? How many Ks a week are you doing? Because I know a lot of the people listening will be wondering what's a typical week look like for you.
So at the moment, it's one swim a day, so 2-hour sessions, which will cover maybe 6 or 7 Ks in a session. I'm swimming with a group called City of Perth Swimming Club, and what I'll tend to do is at parts through the year, I'll maybe ramp that up to get a bit more sort of distance into the arms and build that aerobic capacity. But for me and my coach Owen Carroll, we really want to work on quality work. and just make sure that the whole process is enjoyable. Obviously, there's going to be tough sessions, and you probably won't be enjoying them at the time, but overall, it's something that we want to be able to look back at and think, I really valued that, journey and the work that we did. And, I think it's certainly coming together in these swims like the Cook Strait, the swimming work and the gym work. So twice a week I'm doing strength and conditioning with a guy called Ryan Everenden, who is a former swimmer himself, and I think has gone through injuries and realised the importance of S&C and managing those, and getting the best out of yourself even for the longer distances. So yeah, I think our approach has always been to try work smart. Always, hard work will always get you somewhere, but smart work will get you further. That's the kind of mantra that we try to apply to everything that we do.
And do you think the one session a day rather than double swim days helps a lot with that? Like just the recovery, mental side of it?
I think the double sessions are really good. Having that fatigue in the body and having to train through that, replicates the latter stages of these marathon swims. So I'll definitely introduce the afternoon sessions as well. Once I get back into the swing of things, I think, growing older. I mean, I'm 32, so I'm older than I was, I suppose. But with 25 years in this sport, I've started to realize the importance of things like recovery and making sure that go for my massages, eat well, hydrate well. Any injuries or niggles, get them seen to as early as possible, because we can only get the best out of ourselves. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here, but like it really is such an important thing. And if you do want to get those 1%ers, these things all contribute to that. So yeah, it's certainly been a mindset shift since my younger days in the sport. And we're looking at all aspects of training and recovery instead of just trying to flog ourselves in the pool all the time.
And you talked about doing quality sessions. Can you define what quality is to you? What are you and your coach thinking of in terms of making sure the sessions are quality?
Well, I'll answer this by rewinding a bit. So when I got back into the sport in 2020 and targeted trying to win Rottnest, a lot of the guys that I was going to be up against were, some of the best marathon swimmers in the country, guys that were on the Australian team. And so I sat down with my coach, Owen, and, one of the things we said was, we're not going to be able to out-train these guys. Like, they've been training, non-stop for the last X number of years, whilst, I've been overseas and not particularly looking after myself. Yeah. But maybe we can train more specific and targeted than them towards Rottnest, so a 19.7 kilometer event. So one of the guys I'd reached out to, a friend of yours, Sam Shepherd, over in Melbourne, he'd won it in 2019 and done something similar. He'd come out of retirement to take on the challenge. And, we talked for a long time on the phone, I remember it, about quality sessions and working at those paces or working even faster than the paces that you wanted to be holding during the swim. So for me, I had this idea of trying to make train at sort of 108 pace, being able to make that real bread and butter over 100 meters, and really comfortable, so that on the day, if I was swimming at 112, I'd be able to do that with my eyes closed. So that involved, sessions where we might be doing short rest 100s and a long course pool on 105. and just really challenging the body, but making that possible so that you could drop back to 112s and that would be adorable. So when it did come to the race day, you know, I was able to come out of the blocks, go into that comfort zone at 112, and it was probably just a pace that was a bit faster than what everyone else had planned to go out at. And ultimately it led to leading from the start and just developing this lead that was unassailable by about the 15k mark. And it just meant that when we came up to the finish and approached Rocknest, the lead was about 600 or 700 meters, and I could really just enjoy the moment, not have to stress about having to sprint into the finish and really soak in the whole experience.
And when you're saying 105s, what are you coming in on 105? What are you leaving on? Leaving on
105. So coming
leaving
in
on 105. Right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I know, like that would be the sort of top end of what I can do. And I wouldn't be able to do too many of those, but you know, something like 110s, we'd be able to do them until the cows came home. So yeah, it's just really trying to work in those zones, work in the threshold zones, and just, you know, I think as a sort of fundamental, having good technique and always trying to look at ways to improve that. So, you know, when you do these swims, these big swims, if you think about how many strokes you're going to be taking, you know, if your technique's not up to scratch, or you're doing things that are loading muscles that shouldn't be loaded, it's going to make it a lot harder. So that was something that we wanted to make sure that we get right before we loaded the body and started putting stress on some smaller muscles that might not be as durable or as strong as ones that you could be using.
Was there anything that stood out to you or comes to mind with your technique that you did focus on?
Oh, I'm speaking with a technique guru, so I'm not too sure what I can think of. You know, for me, I think getting a good pull and catch has always been an important thing. We were doing a lot of single arm work and band work to really focus on our catch, getting early catch and long use.
With a band around your ankles, or are you talking like band out of the water?
Oh, sorry, band around the ankles. But yeah, single arm, that was, you know, our go-to drill, and just taking time to isolate, you know, one arm at a time and really think about your hand entry and making the most of every stroke.
Yeah, it's I had Coach Brant Best on the podcast recently, and he was talking about that drill as well, with single arm drill. You've only got one arm to think about, and you can really dial in some of those changes. Like, I have a lot of swimmers that I see who are over rotating, and particularly to one side. And if you get them to do single arm on the left side and then on the right side, you'll see one side they're normally pretty good, the other side they're not. And so you can work on a drill like single arm to just refine it and find that better balance, or, you know, improve a catch or whatever it might be. So I think there's a reason it's a real go-to drill for swimmers, especially at your level. And I've seen that with a heap of other elite swimmers such as yourself. So it's not surprising that that's a go-to drill. And in terms of the training, I think I did the Rottnest swim in 2018, I think it was. And one of the mistakes I made in leading up to it was I didn't do enough threshold work. I was just doing things a little bit too easy. And distance-wise, it was fine, but I just don't think I trained myself. I didn't train enough at those slightly faster paces, and I paid for that towards the back of the race. And in hindsight, obviously we get a lot wiser with hindsight, and as we get older, you know, we become more aware of, you know, if we were this smart at 20, 21, I think we, you know, could go a lot further.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, you just don't know what you don't know. Like, that would have been a steep learning curve, no doubt. But, you know, having done it, you know what you could be doing for the next time. And Did you ever go back and do it again, or did it lead to any other ones, or
No,
you managed to resist the slippery slope? Because once you do it, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, well, I think coming from Melbourne, it's a little bit easier to not do it the next year. If I lived in Perth, I think I'd probably be doing it each year. Or it's easy to say that, coming from
yeah
when I live over here, but it's a bit in a team. That's right, and it's easier to organise boats and all that sort of stuff. But no, so I haven't done any longer swims. However, the last, I'd say, 6 months, as I've started to get back into swimming a bit more regularly since COVID, I've been a lot better with hitting the right zones in training, and I've noticed a huge benefit to it. So I can see if I do take that route, that it's going to be, I'm a lot smarter now with long distance swimming than I was in the past. And talking to swimmers like yourself, and then I had Solomon Wright and Heidi Garn on the podcast when they won it that year, and just listening to what they were doing in training, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm missing here, and this would have been great information to have prior to it. But as I said, hindsight's great.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, both great swimmers, Heidi and Solomon. So they're smart. They know what they're doing as well. So it's pretty awesome.
And so at the moment, what's your sort of routine at the moment? You're obviously doing quite a bit of training. Are you working as well? What's your routine like?
So I bought a business with a couple of friends of mine. We bought, of all things, an industrial cleaning business where we have a team of staff that clean for the mining companies. So cleaning dump trucks and excavators, all the equipment that you'll see being used up at a BHP or a Rio Tinto mine. And so I'm effectively the bookkeeper or the financial controller of that. And that keeps me busy. But the fortunate thing is I get to work from a laptop wherever in the world. So that's been a real, game changer for me. I don't have to be in a particular place all the time. And it allows me to do what I'm doing here with these Ocean 7 swims, and I can still work and have an income.
That's a great setup, and must be much easier than working for someone else. You wouldn't be able to get the leave, or you'd have to have a very lenient boss, I think, to have you do what you're doing. So when did you buy that? How long has it been running for?
Oh, that would have been September 2021. So we've had a year and a half now. It's certainly come with its challenges. When things don't go wrong, it kind of falls on your shoulders. There's no one else to blame. But at the same time, it's been hugely rewarding and an incredible learning experience. We're sort of in control of our own destinies and building a business that hopefully we can get to a size and maybe consider selling it in a couple of years. And I think when you've got that knowledge and experience of doing something like that, it's very transferable into other things down the line.
Absolutely. I was just curious as to how you were managing to do such a big year of swims with working and funding it and all that sort of stuff. So that's fantastic. And one thing I want to just go back to is the strength and conditioning. So talked about you working with a strength and conditioning coach who was a swimmer in the past. What sort of stuff are you doing at the moment to keep your shoulders strong and handle the load that you're doing and the distance that you're doing?
So it's a lot of there's, I suppose, the usual things like single leg squats and all these exercises that aren't necessarily about building muscle, but it's more about strengthening areas around the muscles and the ligaments. If you think about long distance swimming, you're really putting things under duress, and you tend to get, I certainly tend to get sore in those sort of minor muscles that aren't even really being used. So I'll get it in my hip flexors, for example, and I don't really kick that much, but over time, that tiny little bit of kick that balances your body does start to add up. So we're doing things to try strengthen those or make them more durable. Many swimmers might get, pins and needles during these long swims. And that's, my understanding of that is just sort of less blood circulation to your fingertips. So fortunately, the guys at Formidable Strength and Conditioning, they're willing to try new things and seek new options to address issues like that. So for that, they have these sort of bracelets that you put on each arm, and they inflate almost like when you're getting your blood pressure taken at the doctor's. And so they're constricting the blood flow to your arms, and we're doing our pull-ups with those on, and almost trying to replicate that feeling out there when you might be at the 15-kilometer mark, where you might be at the 20-kilometer mark, where you're starting to lose feeling and dexterity in your fingers and your hands. Because I think it happens to us all. Like, I certainly had it in the Cook Strait. I developed the claw after about 3 hours, and tried to like flex my fingers, and my hand got stuck like this. So I tried to like open it up, and it was stuck in the claw for the remainder of the swim. But again, like Team Sky, 10 years ago, and Dave Brailsford, we're always looking for those 1%ers and ways to improve. And over the length of a marathon swim, it does make a huge difference, and can be the 4 minutes that you need for going either side of a target time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've seen Michael Andrew use those before, and I've sort of looked into them a little bit, but hadn't sort of thought about the purpose behind their use. So that's a really interesting one. And so how long would your gym sessions or your strength and conditioning sessions go for?
Probably about an hour. We don't want to make them too long, and you've got, I think, there's that balance between too much training and having a life. So trying to make sure that it's, obviously I love what we're doing and I love the training, but I think swimming is there to sort of be of benefit to you, not take over your life. Swimming's there to complement your life, not take over it. So getting that balance between training and other areas is really important, and that's what we try to do.
What do you love to do outside of swimming?
I love the outdoors, so try get outside, go down the beach or go on hikes as much as I can. My older sister lives in Perth, and she's just had a baby boy, so I'll try go and spend as much time as I can with her and her family. So yeah, it's I suppose quite a normal down to earth outside of the pool life for me. But yes, I feel very fortunate to live where we do in Perth. The weather's always really nice, blue skies, very few clouds. So, but every now and again, it's good to get back to Scotland. So it's been a few years since COVID, but I think I'm going to try get back every year or two. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, there's something about, like, it doesn't need to be out there, does it? I think about what I love to do. I love being outside, whether that's in the surf, on the mountain bike, or just there's something about being outside. And I had the Ironman world champ on from last year, Gustav Eden, and he said, "Why have you always got a smile on your face when you're training?" I was just see footage and you're just always smiling. And he said, "I just love being outside." Yeah. And I thought that's the simplest, best answer I've heard to why do you do what you do? It's there's something to it.
I 100% agree. I think there's something about being in nature that is just really calming and beneficial. So no, I 100% agree with that.
And what's surprised you so far about your quest to do the Ocean 7 in a year? Is there anything that surprised you that maybe you weren't expecting?
I think, it's been probably a pleasant surprise, just how lovely the swimming community is. Like, I've just been so fortunate to meet such incredible people that are involved or attached to the sport in like for all these different reasons. And like I'm a people person. I love to understand the why behind things, and there's some incredible stories that these people have of why they swim. And for me, that's been the most fascinating thing, just meeting the people that are involved, the people that make all of these swims what they are, and just getting to know others through this sport. I just couldn't, yeah. It's been the best thing about all of this, and doing these swims like the Cook Strait or the English Channel. They really are a privilege. Not everyone gets to do them. So, like, I'm just very grateful for the opportunities and for being able to do them. And I think it's been such a valuable and such a valuable journey so far. So I'm just really excited for what's ahead.
Well, I'd like to wish you the best of luck for the remaining 4 swims and whatever you choose to do after that. For those that are listening, what's the best way to follow you? What's your Instagram? And we'll put all these in the show notes as well, but what's the best way to follow your journey?
Probably on the social media. So Andy Donaldson on Facebook or Andy.swimming on Instagram. And, I'll try to do my best to keep everyone informed and updated on there. We'll be heading over to Hawaii in April for the Molokai Channel swim. That's what's up next. And yeah, just keep taking each one by one step at a time. I think focusing on the remaining 4 is probably too big to think about at the moment. So it's just these small, bite-sized, manageable chunks, and just enjoy whatever comes, and we'll be giving it our best one way or another.
Absolutely. And I know you raise money for the Black Dog Institute as well, so we'll put the link to that. So if you are listening, you'd like to support mental health and in a way, I guess, support what you're raising awareness for as well, we'll include those in the show notes as well. So, Andy, I've really enjoyed chatting to you, and thank you for being on the podcast. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of months. It's going to be really exciting, and looking forward to following it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on, Brenton. It's been a great, really enjoyed chatting with you too, and we'll be giving it our best for mental health. So, yeah.